Hey everyone, this is going to be hopefully a short video to cover up from the snow day or the inclement weather day, I guess is the way to put it. I'm going to dive right in because I want to make this as short as possible and still get you the information you need. Please ask questions, send me emails if you have questions. A couple of things that we covered in class today. One of them is about the assignment, the professional report. You have to interview two individuals and they need to be from your chosen profession. I don't care if you're related to them. I don't care if they work in another state. Just find two individuals that have the kind of job that you want to have. And what you're talking to them about is their experience working with families. Now, you don't have to talk to them about whether they like their job or anything like that. In the assignments tab and under this assignment, you will find a list of some proposed questions. You don't have to ask all those questions. They're just a jumping off point. Don't take too much of the time of the people that you're helping to ask all the questions. Just pick the questions that you want to use most and ask them those questions. The other part of the assignment is to find two research articles that combine or look at some of the same topics that you talked with the interviews for. And you can do this by finding the journal articles and then making sure you ask questions about that of the people you're interviewing, or you can wait till you've interviewed people and have them talk about something important to them and then find the journal articles that support or talk about that construct. So take a look at it. If you have any questions, email me. The due date has been moved to March, so I think it's March 9th. So look on there. You have several weeks to do that. We'll still have time to answer questions next week. The other thing that we covered in class today is a little bit more about kind of trauma and stress and crisis and how that plays out. One of the things that I want you to know and understand is the way that the body responds. So we talked about the brain. Remember that there are three things that happen in the brain that get turned off in the brain. There's reason and rational thought. There's language, and then there's timelines. And remember, and you need to know this for the test, that the timeline one is the one that causes the most stress and trauma later on. Now, we already talked a little bit about what the body does. One of the things that the body does is that your eyes, your pupils dilate when you're in fight or flight, so they get really big, and then your pupils constrict significantly when you're in freeze mode. The other thing that happens is your digestion shuts down in fight or flight, so you can have the energy and that you don't need to go to the bathroom while you're trying to run or get away or fight for something. And the other thing is that your heart races, your heart speeds up, pumping blood to your muscles, so your muscles have the strength that they need to do all the things of fight or flight, and your lungs speed up. Now, one thing that's really important is you've probably heard people talk about breathing exercises. Why therapists and other mental health providers and other, yoga people, why we all teach breathing is because of the autonomic nervous system, which is the kind of part of the nervous system that runs the part of your body that you don't have to think about. So your heart, you don't have to think to make your heart beat. You don't have to think about breathing in order to breathe. But same thing with eyes and dilation and your digestion. You don't have to think about those things for it to work. The only part of that you really have conscious control over, or the part that you have the easiest conscious control over, is your lungs. And your lungs are the part that you can control. And so we teach breathing techniques because if you can control your lungs and you can slow your breathing down, it'll have a ripple effect on the rest of your body. And that's really important as you look at why do you teach breathing. And it's also really important to understand why that works and how that works. And so if you look at heart rate variability, which is the kind of not just in like a minute, your heart rate by minute, beats per minute, but if you look at within that minute, there's variability where your heart speeds up and slows down, and it kind of has this oscillating speed. And that kind of micro changes in your heart rate are correlated with breathing. And what happens is when you breathe in, it speeds your heart rate up. This is why when you want to do something physical, when you want to run a race or something, you take a deep breath in, a big deep breath, and that gives you kind of energy. And then if you want to calm yourself down, if you're shooting free throws or something, you have a cleansing breath, slow breath out, and it calms you down. So breathing out slows you down, breathing in speeds you up. Okay, and it's important to note these things because What you want to do when you're doing a breathing technique is you want to spend more time breathing out than breathing in. And so one of my favorite breathing techniques is called 4-7-8 breathing, where you're breathing in for 4 seconds, you hold for 7 seconds, and then you breathe out for 8 seconds. Now, the important part of that isn't the 4, 7, and 8. The important part is that you're breathing out twice as long as you're breathing in. As you do that, you will slow your heart rate down, your pupils will return to normal, and your digestion will pick back up and return to normal. And that's the important key that you're trying to accomplish, is you're slowing things down, right? And so using your breathing as a mechanism to regulate your body is why we teach breathing techniques, and why you should all learn those, and why you should teach other people those. Okay? Now shifting to cognitive behavioral. With all of the theories, there's some specific things I want you to focus on, and things that I want you to understand. We can talk more about this next week when we prep for the test, but cognitive behavioral, the 3 things I want you to focus on are schemas, automatic thoughts and behavior, and cognitive distortion. Schemas are nothing more than a way to organize information in our brain, and we all have different schemas for everything. And everything has a schema around and attached to it, and that it attaches to schemas with things that are connected to it, right? Schemas aren't good or bad. They just are. But if you're going to work with people, you want to know what their schemas are. And so if I'm working with somebody who's depressed, I want to know what they think of depressed people. I want to know what their identity, how their identity is being affected by struggling with their emotions. I want to know what they think about therapists. So I want to know what their schemas are around people who are trying to help them. And so you're going to ask a lot of questions to understand people's schemas. If you're working with Health and Human Services, you want to know what the people think of Health and Human Services. And from a cognitive behavioral standpoint, that's understanding the schemas around their interaction with Health and Human Services. The other one is automatic thoughts and behaviors. This is important because it's usually the kind of unfiltered perception that they have. So if you talk about something specific and you say their unfiltered reaction to it, and then they kind of walk that back and reel it back in, you're getting a glimpse of what they really feel deep down, but what they really feel like they shouldn't always tell you, right? So if you work for Health and Human Services and they're being investigated for child maltreatment, they're probably really angry about that. And so when they show up at your house and they're all super nice and sweet, and you're kind of wondering, this seems weird, and then you ask a question and you get this flash of anger, and then they reel it back in, you can tell that they probably are really angry. They're just trying to control it. And there's good reason why they're trying to control it and be respectful, right? They don't want to lose their kids, or they don't want to be investigated. So it makes sense that they would be upset. The other thing is cognitive distortions. And the way that you get at cognitive distortions is trying to understand people's schemas, understand the way that they're organizing the world in their brain. And cognitive distortions are usually built from an accurate perception of an experience that then becomes generalized to a lot of other things. And so it might be that if you're a therapist, it might be that they've had a bad experience with therapists, and they say things like, therapists are all crazy, okay? And that might be their cognitive distortion. And hopefully therapists aren't all crazy, but there are some that are. And so one of the things to understand with cognitive distortions is you can't tell somebody that they're wrong in thinking that, because at some point the cognitive distortion was probably made because of something that happened to them that they experienced that's probably accurate. And so cognitive distortions are the places that you want to try to fix and address and deal with. And they're nothing more than just misperceptions that can either be wildly inaccurate, that they believe that if they would just do X, Y, and Z, everything would be fine. And a lot of times people will say things to me like, oh, my anxiety is high because of, I just need a new car. If I had a new car that was reliable, I would have lower anxiety. And they get a new car and their anxiety is still high. And so they have this cognitive distortion that if they would just do X, it would fix everything, and it doesn't. So I think that that's a good example of kind of cognitive distortions. You need to know how to perceive schemas, automatic thoughts and behaviors, and cognitive distortions, and understand what they are and how to notice them. All right. I think that's all I have. I hope that this helps. And please email me and let me know you've watched this.